of our colleagues in the university sector. Universities are supposed to be the avenues through which we exchange ideas, where we come to learn, where we come to engage. And universities are the intersection where engagements happen, marketplace for ideas. There are many times we have missed, national moments in the country, when things happen and you feel we should gather together a team of researchers, academicians, and thinkers to begin, reviewing some of the things that we are doing. And let me disabuse you of this notion. There's a belief that people have that government always knows. It's not true. Government doesn't know in most cases. And government that knows is government that engages and listens to others. The more conversation you have, the more likely it is that you will have better ideas as you move forward. And I can make this confession with about nearly 5 years under my belt as a cabinet minister. The reason why many African governments are not doing well is because they are managed with that attitude that we know. They never engage in conversations. And the reason why many players in the north, for example, do better is because people constantly converse, constantly engage. People believe that you have good ideas, but there's always room for more good ideas, as it were, as you move forward. So I sincerely want to encourage you, Dean, this is the way we need to go. And I pray that an opportunity to stand here and get new ideas, answer questions, and get to know much more than we are likely to know by just spending time with our colleagues in government offices, as it were. And I pray that we become a community of conversing people who are constantly in search of new knowledge and new ideas as we go along. That's how we are going to do better. And therefore, what you're doing is wonderful, really. And frankly speaking, for colleagues like Mwenda, who have just come straight from a teaching stint in the US and the rest, this is really the way we are supposed to operate, where we come here and engage, and let's have as many conversations as we can on all the things we are doing, whether it's on education and stuff like that. Long time ago, well, not quite long time ago, but anyway, some time ago, a few people in the room may relate to this. There was a broadcasting house in this country called VOK. VOK, some people in the room may not have lived when VOK was here. VOK is Voice of Kenya. And it was a government-owned station, managed by government and operated by government. There was a time when there was a newspaper called Kenya Times. Some of you may not have known about it, but Kenya Times existed. And actually somebody joked one day that they went to a minister's office at that time when Kenya Times existed, and there was a copy of Kenya Times on the desk of the minister, and it was stamped confidential. It was Kenya Times, which in most cases spoke about government stuff, but even then it was meant to be confidential. Anyway, the point I want to make is that VOK used to run a program called Dunia Wiki Hii. Some of you can relate to it. Dunia Wiki Hii, the world this week. I think the world became too complex and too complicated, so broadcasting houses stopped talking about the world. So this week, I was looking at the raging debate in the papers on mass failures, the Kenya School of Law. That actually of the candidates who got out of our law classes in our universities and went to the Kenya School of Law, not even 20% managed to pass to go out and practice. Then I reflected on how I was being roasted last December after I released the KCSE results, with some religious people saying the exam was marked in a hurry. That is why we have mass failures. Then I thought maybe the Kenya School of Law people also mark exams in a hurry. Then the other day we looked at the figures and the passes in the teacher training institutions in our country. And the harrowing experience of having about half or more of those who are training to be teachers, who are going to teach our children, failing. And then we find a way of absorbing them. And then for some reason, we imagine that after they have failed, they will now shape our children very well. And our children will come out with flying colors, going through the hands of those who have failed. My first statement this morning is that we are, and I'll make another confession. I think for those of us in the policy community, time is here for us to admit that we lost close to 2 decades of poor planning, very low level policy discussions, and therefore our planning for our education was at variance with our development needs and the growth of our country. Because one thing I keep asking myself every day is that when we sat down and developed Vision 2030, we should have actually spent even much more time asking and answering the question, what kind of education would we need and what skills would we need to achieve Vision 2030? Because had we done that, we will not be having a situation in our universities today where 80% of our undergraduate students in the universities are in the liberal arts and the humanities. And we want to be an industrialized country. So the beginning of this is that we are reforming the curriculum because we have looked at our development and we are answering the question of our needs. We want education, we want training, we want preparation of our children to be responsive to our development needs and to the growth of our country, so that we are essentially taking through our young people, who are our greatest resource, through a school system that is going to produce the manpower that this country and the globe needs for development. We have not been doing that. There are many other issues that you could actually address in that respect. Those issues include the soft issues. For example, when at independence, I keep asking colleagues every time, at independence, what were the objectives of our education system? One of them was that education was intended to lead us to national integration. Are we integrated as a country? Why do we have village universities where villagers come and tell us that for someone to be appointed vice chancellor, the first qualification is that they must come from that tribe. Anything else follows thereafter. You must come from that tribe where the university is based. Are we integrated as a community? And actually, if you went down the objectives of our education at independence, immediately we became independent in 1963. The focus was we are developing manpower to take over our economy from the colonialists so that we can develop our country. But truth be told, we ended up with an education that was producing officers to inherit the colonial government from the colonialists. So we began an education system that would produce officers, that would produce clerical staff, that would produce black Kenyan masters and bosses, as it were. That ideology has moved with us for a long time. That's why people are dying to go to the university and get a degree no matter what. And even if they actually probably do not know what they are going to do with the degree, as long as they put on a gown, they attend a graduation ceremony, they have a party, and they bring people from their village with matatus and leaves. Without even pausing to say, okay, what is this going to do to me in the long run? So we are also reforming the curriculum because our ideology of education must change with the time. We are not equipping ourselves to be officers. We are not, the country does not need officers. Our economy does not need bosses. Our economy needs skilled people who are productive enough. In fact, he said, you know, for a moment, Fred, do you know the world is looking for skills. We're looking for skilled people who can add value, who can do things. So private sector companies in India can hire Kenyan ICT graduates or Kenyan kids in ICT based in Westlands to do a lot of back-end work for them, and they'll make money because the world is looking for skilled people who can add value to the economies. When the Minister for Migration for Canada was here the other day, and we were having a discussion, and he was saying the reason why some governments and countries in the north, like in Canada, are opening up for migration. And if you notice very clearly, when they open up for migration and for those who are moving, they're looking for skilled people. Because they say the economies are growing, and they're looking for manpower to support their economies. That is why if you are a trained nurse, you're almost guaranteed. Because people are looking for those who are going to participate in the economy. I wonder, with the challenges we have of unemployment in our country, and in most of sub-Saharan Africa, how is it that we are not exporting manpower as rapidly as Philippines is doing? Many of you have gone to the Middle East. You see the number of Filipino workers in the Middle East. That's where the economy is growing. And they're exporting manpower because they have identified the skills that are needed by the global economy, and therefore training in those areas to be able to supply the global economy. So we're changing the curriculum because of that. And we are reforming the curriculum so that we emphasize more on competencies.